They helped humanity. Once, we repaid them in ways that changed the galaxy. The stars looked cold through the viewport of the command deck. Captain Day One stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching Earth grow smaller in the distance. The planet was dying. Everyone knew it. The atmospheric collapse had started 3 years ago, and nothing humanity tried could stop it. Colonies on Mars and Europa were struggling too. Food shipments were failing. Power grids were shutting down. Humanity had reached for the stars only to discover they were too far away to save them. "Captain, we're receiving another distress signal from Colony 7, Lieutenant Tae-hyun said from his station. His voice was flat, emotionless. They had heard too many distress signals lately. There was nothing left to send. Daewon nodded slowly. "Log it. Add it to the others." Dr. Hana looked up from her research console. Her eyes were tired, ringed with dark circles. "We should respond. Even if it's just to tell them we can't help." "What's the point?" Tae-hyun snapped. "They know we can't help. Everyone knows. We're all dying together." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Because they were true. Humanity had survived wars, plagues, and near extinctions before. But this time felt different. This time felt final. The alarm broke the silence. Every screen on the command deck lit up at once. Proximity warnings flashed red across the displays. "Unknown vessel dropping out of faster-than-light travel," Tae-hyun shouted, his fingers flying across his controls. "It's massive. 3 times the size of our largest carrier. I'm reading technology signatures we've never seen before." Daewon's heart hammered in his chest. First contact. After all these years of searching the stars, something had finally found them. And humanity was at its weakest. "Battle stations," he ordered quietly. "Power up whatever weapons we have left." "Captain, wait," Dr. Hana said, staring at her scanner. "I'm not reading any weapon signatures." "And they're broadcasting on multiple frequencies." "I think they're trying to communicate." The main screen flickered. Then an image appeared. Daewon had seen many strange things in his years exploring space, but nothing had prepared him for this. The being on the screen was beautiful and alien in equal measure. Its body seemed to be made of living crystal, shifting colors like a prism in sunlight. Where eyes should be, there were pools of deep blue light. When it moved, it made no sound. "Greetings, travelers of the third planet," a voice said. It came from everywhere and nowhere at once, gentle and musical. "We are the Varen. We have heard your world's cry of pain. We come to offer help," Tae-hyun laughed, a bitter sound. "Help? Why would anyone help us? What do you want in return?" The crystalline being tilted its head in a gesture that seemed almost human. "We want nothing. Long ago, when our people faced extinction, another species reached out to save us. They are gone now, lost to time. But their gift remained. We continue their tradition. We help those who need help." Daewon stepped forward. "Our planet is dying. Our colonies are failing. We have nothing to offer you. Nothing to trade. We know," the Viren said. Its voice carried something that might have been sadness. "We have scanned your world and your settlements. You are suffering from atmospheric decay, energy depletion, and biological breakdown at a cellular level. These problems we can solve." "How?" Dr. Hana asked, moving beside Daewon. Her scientific mind was already racing ahead. "Our best scientists have been working on these problems for years." "Because we have faced them before," the Varen replied. "And we were given the knowledge to overcome them. Now we give it to you. We will provide 3 technologies. First, atmospheric processors that can rebuild your air in months instead of centuries. Second, quantum energy matrices that will give you unlimited clean power. Third, medical nanites that can repair your bodies at the cellular level." The command deck fell silent. It was too much, too good. Nothing in the universe came free. "What's the price?" Daewon asked. "What do you really want?" The Viren's blue pools seemed to shine brighter. "Only one thing. That you remember kindness. That when you are strong again, when you have the power to help others, you do so. Pay forward the gift we give you today. That is all we ask." Tae-hyun stood up from his station. "That's it? Just remember to be nice. Forgive me if I don't believe you." "Lieutenant," Daewon warned, but the Varen raised a crystalline hand. "Your suspicion is understandable. Your species has known much conflict. You have learned to trust nothing. But we are not asking for trust. We are simply offering survival. Accept or refuse. The choice is yours. But choose quickly. Your world has less time than you think." Dr. Hana looked at Daewon. Captain, even if this is a trick, what do we have to lose? We're dying anyway. She was right. Day One knew she was right. He took a deep breath. We accept your help, and we will remember your kindness. Then it begins, the Varen said. Over the next weeks, Day One watched in amazement as the Varen kept their promise. Massive devices were transported to Earth's surface. The Varen taught human engineers how to operate them. The atmospheric processors began their work, and within days the air on Earth started to clear. The quantum matrices powered entire cities without fuel. The medical nanites reversed diseases that had plagued humanity for generations. Dr. Hana spent hours each day with the Varen representative who called itself Threshold of Dawn. She learned that the Varen were explorers, seekers of knowledge and beauty. They had traveled the galaxy for thousands of years. They had seen species rise and fall. They had watched civilizations destroy themselves and others reach for greatness. Why do you do this? Hana asked one evening as they stood together watching Earth's sunset. The sky was clearing. It was beautiful again. Why help strangers? Threshold of Dawn's colors shifted to something warm, like gold and firelight. Because we were strangers once. Because someone decided we were worth saving. Because the universe is vast and cold, and kindness is the only thing that makes it bearable. We help because we can. Is that not reason enough? Hana smiled. For you, maybe. But humans are different. We always look for the angle, the hidden cost. We know, Threshold of Dawn said. But perhaps you will learn. Perhaps your species will grow beyond suspicion into something greater. That is our hope. The Varen stayed for 3 months. They shared their technology freely, teaching humanity everything they needed to know. They asked for nothing. They took nothing. And when their ship finally prepared to leave, thousands of humans gathered to watch. Captain Day One stood on the observation platform with his senior staff. Earth was healing. The colonies were stabilizing. Humanity had been pulled back from the edge of extinction by beings they had never met before. We owe them everything, Dr. Hana whispered. Maybe, Lieutenant Taehyun said quietly, but I still don't understand why. No one does something for nothing. There has to be an angle. Day One watched the Varen ship rise into the atmosphere, its crystalline hull catching the light like a diamond. Maybe that's our problem. Maybe we've forgotten how to believe in kindness. The ship vanished in a flash of light, jumping to faster than light speeds. It was gone, but its gift remained. In his quarters that night, Day One recorded a message in Earth's central archives. Today we were saved by strangers who asked for nothing in return except that we remember kindness. This is a debt humanity must never forget. But even as he spoke the words, a small voice in his mind whispered the question that would haunt humanity for decades. What did they really want? They helped humanity once. We repaid them in ways that changed the Galaxy Fleet. Admiral Minji watched as the first ARC ship rolled out of the construction bay. It was massive, 3 kilometers long, designed to carry 500,000 Varen in stasis. They would need 40 of these ships. Maybe more. The project had been running for 2 years and they were only a quarter of the way done. Beautiful, isn't she? Chief Engineer Sang-woo said, standing beside her. His hair had gone completely gray during the project. They all looked older now. The work was relentless. Beautiful and expensive, Minji replied. The accountants tell me we've spent enough resources to colonize 50 new worlds. All for this, having second thoughts? Every day, Minji admitted. But then I remember why we're doing this and I keep going. The Varen Relocation Initiative had transformed humanity. Every colony had contributed. Every settlement had sent resources. People had volunteered by the millions to work on the project. But it hadn't been easy. Food prices had risen. Expansion had stopped. New military ships were delayed. Some colonies complained about shortages. The criticism came from everywhere. The Krillax Empire sent mocking messages calling humanity soft and foolish. The Vex Consortium tried to sabotage supply lines, hoping to profit from humanity's distraction. Even some human colonies protested, saying the resources should go to human needs first. But President Kyung-soo had been firm. The project continued. Dr. So-yeon entered the observation deck carrying her ever-present data tablet. She led the medical team responsible for adapting Varen biology to new environments. It was delicate work. The Varen were crystalline beings with completely different biological needs than humans. We've identified 3 candidate worlds, she said, pulling up holographic images. All have the right mineral composition in their crust. All have appropriate stellar radiation levels, but we'll need to terraform them significantly. Add certain elements to the atmosphere, modify the magnetic field, seed the soil with specific compounds. How long? Minji asked. 4 years. Maybe 5. And that's if everything goes perfectly. Minji nodded. They had time. Barely. The Varan sun was decaying faster than initial predictions. They had maybe 8 years before the home system became uninhabitable. What about the Varan themselves? Sangwoo asked. Are they cooperating? Soyeon's expression darkened. That's the problem. They're resisting. They say they don't want to burden us. They say they've accepted their fate. Threshold of Dawn has been particularly stubborn. It keeps telling us to stop, to use our resources for our own people. Stubborn, proud idiots. Minji muttered affectionately. They saved us, but they won't let us save them. She had been working on that problem. Admiral Bora had suggested a direct approach. If the Viren wouldn't accept help offered, maybe they would accept help demanded. Minji opened a communication channel. This is Fleet Admiral Minji of the Human Defense Force to Threshold of Dawn of the Varan. I'm coming to your homeworld. We need to talk. That's not a request. 3 days later, Minji's ship entered the Varan system. The homeworld was beautiful, covered in crystalline formations that caught the sunlight and scattered it into rainbows. But the sun itself was wrong. Even to her untrained eye, it looked unstable, its corona flickering with dangerous energy bursts. Threshold of Dawn met her at the landing platform. The ancient Varan moved slowly now, its colors muted. It looked tired. You should not have come, it said. This is not your burden to bear. Yes, it is, Minji said firmly. 50 years ago, you made it our burden. You saved us. You tied our fates together. You don't get to untie them just because it's convenient. We asked only that you remember kindness, not that you destroy yourselves trying to save us. We're not destroying ourselves. We're becoming something better. Minji pulled up images of the ARC ships under construction, the terraforming projects, the millions of humans working on the relocation. Look at what you've inspired. Look at what we're capable of when we choose compassion over selfishness. Threshold of Dawn's colors shifted, something like sorrow mixed with wonder. You are spending your future on our past. No, Minji said. We're investing in both our futures together. You're going to let us help you. Not because you want to, but because you owe it to us to let us repay our debt. You taught us about kindness. Now let us teach you about acceptance. For a long moment, Threshold of Dawn was silent. Then its colors began to shift through the spectrum, and Minji realized the Varan was crying. She hadn't known they could cry. You have grown so much, Threshold of Dawn said softly. We were right about your species. We were always right. From that moment, the project accelerated. The Varan stopped resisting and started helping. They provided crucial information about their biology, their needs, their culture. They worked alongside humans to design the relocation, but not everyone was happy. Wu Jin, the governor of a thriving human colony called New Haven, received the news that shocked his entire settlement. New Haven had been selected as one of the relocation sites. The colony would need to be moved to make room for the Varan. The protests were immediate and angry. Wu Jin called an emergency meeting. His people had spent 20 years building New Haven. They had farms, families, homes. Now they were being asked to give it all up. I know what you're feeling, Wu Jin told the gathered crowd. I feel it too. We built this place with our hands and our sweat. It's ours. But 50 years ago, Earth was dying, and the Varan gave everything to save it. They didn't ask for payment. They didn't demand gratitude. They just helped because it was right. He looked at the faces of his people, angry and scared and confused. Now we have a chance to be like them, to give without expecting return, to prove that humanity learned the right lessons. I'm not going to order you to accept this, but I'm asking. I'm asking you to be better than you think you can be, to sacrifice for strangers the way strangers once sacrificed for us. The debate lasted 3 days. In the end, by a narrow vote, New Haven agreed to relocate. Wu Jin stood with tears in his eyes as his people chose compassion over comfort. The relocation took 4 more years. Year after year, humans worked. The ARC ships were completed. The terraforming progressed. The medical team solved problem after problem. And slowly, impossibly, the project came together. The galaxy watched in disbelief. No species had ever attempted something like this. The scale was too large. The cost too high. The other powers waited for humanity to fail, to prove that compassion was weakness. But humanity didn't fail. On the day of the first major relocation, Fleet Admiral Minji stood on the command deck of the lead ARC ship. Behind her, 39 other vessels held millions of Viren in carefully designed stasis. Below them, 3 freshly terraformed worlds waited, their surfaces modified to Viren specifications. Threshold of Dawn stood beside her, its colors bright for the first time in years. "We do not have words in our language for what you have done," it said. "We saved your species once, a simple act of compassion. You have repaid us 1,000-fold. We haven't repaid anything," Minji said. "We're just passing on what you taught us. Besides, you enhanced our DNA without telling us. You gave us immunity to diseases we didn't even know existed. You gave us 20 extra years of life. I think we're still in your debt." "Then we are even," Threshold of Dawn said. "And we are friends." "Yes," Minji agreed. "Friends." The ships descended to the world they had named New Dawn. The Viren emerged from stasis, their crystalline bodies catching the light of their new sun. They stood on alien soil that had been transformed to feel like home. They looked up at the unfamiliar stars, and they knew they had been saved by the very species they had once saved. The cycle had completed. Back on Earth, President Kyung-soo watched the broadcast of the landing. He had aged significantly during the project. The stress had taken its toll, but he smiled as he watched the Viren take their first steps on their new world. "We did it," Dr. Ji-won said beside him. She had been there from the beginning, helping, guiding, pushing. "Against all odds, we actually did it." "Not we," Kyung-soo said. "Humanity, all of us. Every person who contributed. Every settlement that sacrificed. Every worker who believed this mattered. They did it." The news spread across the galaxy. Humanity had done the impossible. They had relocated an entire species. They had sacrificed their own expansion and resources to save those who once saved them. Some species still called them fools. But others began to wonder, if humans could do this, what else were they capable of? And more importantly, what did it mean for the galaxy to have a major power that operated on principles other than pure self-interest? In the crystal gardens of New Dawn, Threshold of Dawn planted the first seed from the old homeworld. It would grow here, adapted to the new soil, a reminder of where they came from and who had brought them here. "Thank you," it whispered to the humans who had made this possible. "Thank you for teaching us that our faith in your species was not misplaced. Thank you for showing the galaxy that there is another way." Above them, the human fleet prepared to depart. The relocation was complete. Humanity had kept its promise. They had remembered kindness, and in doing so, they had changed everything. They helped humanity once. We repaid them in ways that changed the galaxy 50 years past like a dream. Admiral Bora stood in the Grand Hall of the Galactic Assembly, surrounded by representatives from 40 different species. The hall was magnificent, carved from a single asteroid and lined with viewing ports that showed the spinning cosmos beyond. Once humans had been the desperate newcomers begging for scraps. Now they were a power to be respected. Bora had been just a child when the Viren came. She remembered Captain Daewon, her mentor, telling stories about the crystalline beings who saved humanity. He had died 10 years ago, peacefully on an Earth that was green and thriving again. He had made her promise to never forget what the Viren had given them, but the galaxy had changed. And so had humanity. "The human delegation demands too much," a reptilian ambassador hissed from across the chamber. "You expand too quickly. You take resources that belong to others. You were nothing 50 years ago." Counselor Jinwoo, Earth's representative, smiled coldly. He was a politician through and through, skilled at the games the Assembly played. "We were nothing because we were dying. But we learned. We adapted. We grew strong. Is that not what every species must do to survive?" "You were given technology you did not earn," another voice called out. "Without the Viren gift, you would be extinct." Bora felt her jaw tighten. It was true, but humanity had taken that gift and built something incredible with it. Human colonies now spread across 30 systems. Human ships were among the fastest in the galaxy. Human medicine was saving lives on a dozen different worlds. They had earned their place here. The argument continued for hours. It was the same debate that happened every assembly session. Some species resented humanity's rapid rise. Others feared it. A few, very few, respected it. When the session finally ended, Bora found Counselor Jinwoo in a private chamber overlooking the stars. "They hate us," she said simply. Jinwoo poured himself a drink from a bottle of earth wine. "They fear us. There's a difference. Fear can be useful. Captain Daewon wouldn't have wanted this. He wanted us to be better." "Daewon was a dreamer," Jinwoo said, not unkindly. "He lived in a time when humanity was weak and needed to believe in kindness. We live in a time when humanity is strong and needs to believe in strength. The galaxy respects only power, Admiral. Everything else is just pretty words." Bora wanted to argue, but movement at the entrance caught her attention. A figure glided into the room, its crystalline body reflecting the starlight. Bora's breath caught in her throat. She hadn't seen a Varen in decades. "Threshold of dawn," she whispered. The ancient Varen moved slowly, its colors dimmer than she remembered from the old recordings. "Admiral Bora, Counselor Jinwoo. It is good to see humanity thriving." Jinwoo set down his glass. "We weren't expecting Varen representatives at this assembly. Your people rarely leave your home system anymore." "We came because we heard troubling news," Threshold of Dawn said. Its voice still carried that musical quality, but there was sadness in it now. "We have been monitoring human space. We are pleased to see your success, but we are concerned about how you achieved it." Bora felt defensive. "We used the technology you gave us. We built on it, made it better. That's what you wanted, wasn't it? For us to survive?" "Survival, yes," the Viren said. "But we have seen your warships. We have analyzed their weapons. They are built from our medical nanites, transformed into devices that destroy rather than heal. Our quantum matrices meant to power cities, now power weapons that can crack planets. You have taken gifts of life and turned them into instruments of death." Jinwoo's face hardened. "The galaxy is not kind to the weak. You taught us to survive. We learned that lesson well. We will never be helpless again." "We taught you compassion," Threshold of Dawn said, and for the first time Bora heard something like anger in its voice. "We taught you that kindness has power. We asked only that you remember this and pay it forward when you had the strength." "And we will," Jinwoo said, "when we're secure. When we're certain of our place. But right now, we need to be strong first." Threshold of Dawn's colors shifted to something dark like storm clouds. "We were wrong about your species. We thought you had the capacity for growth. Instead, you learned only the wrong lessons." The Viren turned to leave, but Bora called out, "Wait, why did you really come here?" "Not just to criticize us." Threshold of Dawn stopped. For a long moment it was silent. Then it spoke quietly. "We came to see the species we saved. To know if our gift was worth giving. We have our answer now," the Viren left. Bora stood in the silence, feeling something heavy settle in her chest. Jinwoo returned to his drink as if nothing had happened. That night Bora couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Threshold of Dawn's words, about Captain Daewon's promise to never forget, about what humanity had become. She was reviewing reports in her quarters when a priority message arrived on a secure channel. The sender was Young-Sik, a humanitarian coordinator working in the outer colonies. She knew him slightly. A good man who spent his time helping struggling settlements. The message was short but shocking. "Admiral Bora, I have discovered something you need to know. The Varen are dying. Their sun is becoming unstable. Their home system will be uninhabitable within a century. They have told no one. I only found out because I was researching stellar phenomena for a colony project. They saved us when we were dying. Now they're facing extinction and staying silent. What are we going to do?" Bora read the message 3 times. Then she pulled up every piece of data she could find on the Varen home system. Young-Sik was right. The stellar decay was clear in the scientific data. The Varen had perhaps 90 years, maybe less. They had saved humanity from extinction. Now they faced it themselves. She thought about going to Jinwoo, but she knew what he would say. The cost of saving an entire species would be astronomical. It would drain resources humanity needed for expansion and defense. It would make them look weak to the other galactic powers. It would be, from a strategic standpoint, foolish. But Bora also thought about a young captain named Daewon, standing on Earth and watching a crystalline ship disappear into the stars. She thought about his words. This is a debt humanity must never forget. She pulled up the communication system and began composing a message. It would go to every human colony, every ship, every settlement. It would start a debate that would shake humanity to its core. Citizens of Earth and all human settlements. 50 years ago, we were saved from extinction by the Varen. They ask nothing in return except that we remember kindness. Today I learned that the Varen face the same extinction we once did. Their son is dying. They have told no one. Too proud or too compassionate to burden others with their problem. We have a choice to make. Do we repay the debt we owe, or do we forget? She sent the message before she could second-guess herself. Within hours, human space exploded with debate. Some called her a traitor for revealing military intelligence. Others called her a hero for raising the question. Jinwoo was furious, but he couldn't stop the conversation now that it had started. In her quarters, Bora looked at an old photograph of Captain Daewon. He was smiling in it, standing on a rebuilt Earth under a clear sky. "I'm trying to keep your promise, Captain," she whispered to the image. "I hope I'm doing the right thing." Across the galaxy, Threshold of Dawn stood in the crystal gardens of the Varen homeworld. The sun hung in the sky, still beautiful but carrying within it the seeds of their doom. Another Varen approached, its colors questioning. "The humans know of our fate now. What will they do?" Threshold of Dawn's colors shifted through a spectrum of emotions. "I do not know. Perhaps nothing. Perhaps we expected too much from them. Perhaps we should have let them die 50 years ago." "You do not believe that?" "No," Threshold of Dawn admitted. "I do not. But I am afraid of being disappointed again." They stood together watching their dying sun and waited to see what humanity would choose. They helped humanity once. We repaid them in ways that changed the galaxy. The debate tore through humanity like a wildfire. Every news channel, every social platform, every gathering place buzzed with arguments. President Kyung-soo sat in his office on Earth, watching the chaos unfold across dozens of screens. He had been president for 6 years, navigating humanity through prosperity and expansion. Now he faced the hardest decision of his career. "The polls are split almost perfectly down the middle," his aide said nervously. 48% say we should help the Viren. 47% say we can't afford it. 5% are undecided. Kyung-soo rubbed his tired eyes. "And the military assessment?" Commander Subin stepped forward. She was his chief strategic advisor, brilliant and ruthlessly practical. "Mr. President, the numbers are clear. Relocating an entire species would require resources equivalent to 50 years of our total industrial output. We would need to build transport ships for billions of beings. We would need to terraform new worlds. We would need to halt all expansion and redirect every resource to this project. It would leave us vulnerable to our enemies. The Krillax Empire would see it as weakness. The Vex Consortium would take advantage of our distraction. Strategically speaking, it's suicide. But morally speaking?" Kyung-soo asked quietly. Subin hesitated. "That's not my area of expertise, sir." Dr. Jiwon entered the room carrying several data tablets. She was the head of Earth's Xenobiological Research Institute, the position Dr. Hana had held before her retirement. She looked exhausted but determined. "Mr. President, I need to show you something. We've been analyzing the Varen technology they gave us 50 years ago. We always knew it was advanced, but we're only now discovering just how much they gave us." She brought up a holographic display showing complex genetic sequences. "These are human DNA samples from before the Varen contact and after. The changes are subtle, coded deep in our genome. The Varen didn't just give us technology. They modified the medical nanites to rewrite parts of our genetic structure. They made us immune to 3 of the galaxy's deadliest diseases. They increased our resistance to radiation. They even extended our potential lifespan by 20 years. The room fell silent. "They studied us," Jiwon continued. "They must have done it while they were here, learning everything about human biology. Then they tailored their gift specifically for us. They gave us more than survival. They gave us evolution. And they never told us," Kyung-soo said softly. "Why?" "Because that's who they are," Jiwon said. "They don't help for recognition or gratitude. They help because they believe it's right. And now they're dying, and they still haven't asked for help. They're too proud or too principled. But we know. And we have to decide what that knowledge means." Admiral Bora, who had been standing quietly in the corner, finally spoke. "Captain Daewon once told me that the measure of a civilization isn't how strong it is, but what it does with that strength. The Varan taught us that lesson. Are we really going to ignore it now?" Counselor Jinwoo, attending via hologram, shook his head. "Admiral, with respect, sentiment won't keep humanity safe. The galaxy is full of predators. If we drain our resources saving the Viren, who will save us when the next crisis comes? We have to think about human interests first. Is it in our interest to become the kind of species that forgets its debts? Bora shot back. What message does that send? That humans only care about humans? That will take help but never give it? Yes, Jinwoo said bluntly. Because that's how you survive. Every other species in this galaxy operates on self-interest. The Varen are the exception, and look where it got them, facing extinction because they gave too much to others. President Kyung-soo held up his hand for silence. I want to hear from the colonies. What are they saying? The aide pulled up reports from across human space. It's mixed, sir. The older colonies, especially those that remember the crisis, lean toward helping. The newer colonies, especially those on the frontier, say we can't afford it. The military is split. The scientific community wants to help. The business sector says it would be economic disaster. What about the Varan themselves? Kyung-soo asked. Have they responded to our discovery of their situation? No, sir, Bora said. We've sent multiple diplomatic messages. They've ignored all of them. Their representative at the Galactic Assembly issued one brief statement saying that the Varen faced their fate with acceptance and asked nothing from anyone. Pride, Subin muttered. They're too proud to ask for help even when they're dying. Or too wise, Ji-won said. Maybe they know that help given under obligation isn't real help. Maybe they want to see if we'll choose to act on our own. Kyung-soo stood and walked to the window. Earth spread out below him, green and alive. 50 years ago it had been gray and dying. The Varen had changed that. They had given humanity a future. I want to address the Assembly, he said. Both the Human Assembly and the Galactic Assembly. Schedule it for tomorrow. The next day, billions watched as President Kyung-soo stood before the gathered representatives of humanity. His speech was broadcast to every human settlement in the galaxy. 50 years ago we were dying, he began. Our world was collapsing. Our colonies were failing. We had reached for the stars and found only darkness. Then the Varen came. They gave us technology we didn't deserve and couldn't repay. They asked for nothing except that we remember kindness. He paused, letting the words settle. Now they're dying, and they haven't asked for help, because that's who they are. They give without expecting return, but we know about their fate and we have to decide who we are. Are we the species that takes what it needs and forgets those who gave it? Or are we something better? The chamber was silent. I've heard all the arguments, Kyung-soo continued, that we can't afford it, that it will make us weak, that we need to think of human interests first, and I understand these concerns. I truly do. But I keep coming back to one question. What kind of species do we want to be? He looked directly into the camera, knowing his words were reaching every human in the galaxy. The Varen didn't just save our lives. They showed us a different way to exist in this galaxy. A way based on compassion instead of conquest, on giving instead of taking. They believed we could be better than we were. Maybe it's time we prove them right. The debate in the assembly chamber erupted immediately. Voices shouted for and against. Arguments flew back and forth. But Kyung-soo noticed something. The tone had shifted. It was no longer about whether they could help. It was about whether they would. Later that night, Kyung-soo met with his closest advisors in private. Admiral Bora, Counselor Jin-woo, Commander Subin, and Dr. Ji-won sat around the table. I need your honest opinions, Kyung-soo said. No politics. No strategy. Just truth. Should we do this? Subin spoke first. From a military standpoint, it's risky. But I've been thinking about something. If we do this, if we actually pull off saving an entire species, what does that say about human capability? What does it say about our technology and organization? It might actually make us more feared, not less. Jinwoo nodded slowly. I've been analyzing the political angles. If we succeed, we gain massive prestige. The Varen are respected throughout the galaxy. Saving them would establish humanity as not just a power, but as a moral authority. That has value. You're both still thinking strategically, Bora said. But maybe that's not the point. Maybe we should do it simply because it's right. Right doesn't keep people alive, Jinwoo said, but his voice lacked conviction. Dr. Ji-won leaned forward. The Varen gave us more than they had to. They enhanced our very biology to give us a better future. We owe them. Not in a transactional way. In a fundamental way. They bet on humanity being worth saving. We need to prove they were right. Kyung-soo looked at each of them. Then he made his decision. We're doing it. We're going to save them. Not because it's strategic or politically useful, but because 50 years ago someone decided we were worth saving. It's time to pay that forward, he stood up. I want plans for a full relocation effort. I want our best engineers designing transport ships. I want our terraforming teams identifying potential new worlds. I want every resource we have dedicated to this project. We're going to do the impossible. The galaxy will think we're crazy, Jinwoo said. Good, Kyungsoo replied. Let them. Let them see that humanity doesn't forget its debts. Let them see that we're willing to sacrifice for others. Maybe that's the real way to change the galaxy. As the meeting ended and everyone filed out, Admiral Bo-Ra stayed behind for a moment. Thank you, Mr. President. Captain Daewon would be proud. Kyungsoo smiled sadly. I hope so. Because we're about to bet everything on the hope that kindness matters more than power. I hope we're not wrong. They helped humanity once. We repaid them in ways that changed the galaxy. 45 years had passed since the relocation. Elder statesman Jae-hoon walked slowly through the memorial park on Earth, his cane tapping against the stone pathway. He was old now, his hair white, his face lined with the marks of a long life. But his mind was sharp, and his memory was clear. He had been a young soldier once, stationed on a frontier colony, angry that resources were being diverted to save aliens instead of protecting humans. He had protested. He had written angry letters. He had called the relocation project a waste and a betrayal of human interests. He had been wrong about everything. The memorial before him showed the names of every human who had contributed to the Varan relocation, millions of names carved in stone. At the center stood a crystalline sculpture, a gift from the Varan showing two hands reaching for each other across the stars. I used to hate this place, he said aloud. Though he was alone, I thought it represented everything wrong with humanity. Our weakness, our sentimentality. I was a fool. Ambassador Yoonji found him there an hour later. She was young, barely 30, part of the generation that had grown up in the new galaxy. She had never known the old ways when species fought only for themselves. Elder Jae-hoon, she said respectfully. I've been looking for you. The Galactic Assembly is about to begin. Another species wants to join the Covenant? He asked. 3 more, she said, smiling. The Helian Collective, the Dross Confederacy, and the Yith Enclaves. That brings our membership to 47 species. Jae-hoon shook his head in wonder. The Covenant of Dawn had started small, just humanity and the Varan, an alliance based not on military strength but on mutual preservation and support. Other species had laughed at it, called it naive, said it would collapse the moment real pressure was applied. Instead, it had grown. The Covenant's principle was simple. Species helped each other not for strategic advantage, but because help was needed. Resources were shared. Technology was exchanged freely. When one member faced crisis, all members responded. It was everything the old galactic order was not, and it was winning. What happened to the Krillax Empire? Jae-hoon asked as they walked toward the assembly building. Collapsed 6 months ago, Yoonji said. Their subject species all rebelled and joined the Covenant. Turns out when you give people a choice between serving an empire that exploits them or joining an alliance that supports them, they choose support. And the Vex Consortium? Still hanging on, but barely. Their transactional system can't compete with genuine cooperation. Species that used to pay them for protection realized they could get better protection for free by joining the Covenant. Their membership has dropped to 12 species, down from 40. They entered the assembly hall. It was different from the old Galactic Assembly. That had been built on hierarchy and power. This hall was circular with no raised platforms or positions of dominance. Every species sat as equals. Threshold of Dawn was already there, ancient beyond measure now, but still vibrant. Beside it sat the Varan's new generation, young crystalline beings who had been born on New Dawn and knew the old homeworld only from stories. Elder Jae-hoon, Threshold of Dawn, greeted him warmly. It is good to see you. I heard you are finally writing your memoirs. Jae-hoon laughed. Yes, and I'm not being kind to my younger self. I was so certain that helping you was a mistake. So convinced that compassion was weakness. You learned, Threshold of Dawn said simply. That is all anyone can ask. The assembly began. Representatives from dozens of species spoke about problems and solutions. A drought on one world, solved by water transport from another. A plague outbreak, contained by medical teams from 3 different species working together. A failing economy, supported by trade agreements that benefited everyone. It was boring, routine, administrative work, and it was beautiful. Ambassador Yoonji stood to present humanity's latest proposal, The Varen have been sharing their historical archives with us. We've learned that they were once saved by a species called the Forerunners, now extinct. The Forerunners asked only that the Varen pass on the gift of compassion. The Varan did so by saving humanity. We repaid them by relocating their entire species. Now we propose something new. She brought up a holographic star map. There are 7 species in the galaxy currently facing existential threats. Environmental collapse, stellar instability, resource depletion. We propose a joint covenant effort to help all 7. Not because they're members, not because we expect payment, but because it's right.
Because that's what the covenant means. The proposal passed unanimously. After the assembly, Jae-hoon found himself in a garden with several other elder statesmen from various species.
They were all old, all veterans of the time before the covenant when the galaxy had been harder and colder. I still don't understand it, a reptilian elder said. Its species had joined the covenant 15 years ago. How did this happen? How did compassion become the dominant force in the galaxy? A crystalline Viren elder, not Threshold of Dawn but one of its generation, spoke. Because humanity proved it could work. For thousands of years, the galaxy operated on the principle that only the strong survived. That compassion was a luxury. Then humanity was saved, became strong, and chose to save their saviors at tremendous cost. They proved that compassion and strength are not opposites. They showed that giving can be more powerful than taking. We were desperate, Jae-hoon said. We didn't know if it would work. We just knew we had to try. That's what made it revolutionary, another elder said. This one from a species that had been part of the old Krillax Empire. You didn't know. You took a risk. You believed in something other than power. And when other species saw that it worked, that humanity became more respected and more influential by being compassionate, they wanted the same thing. Jae-hoon thought about that. It was true. The Varan relocation had been a gamble. It could have bankrupted humanity, left them vulnerable, destroyed their standing in the galaxy. Instead, it had done the opposite. Species that once mocked humans now sought alliance with them. The galaxy had seen that there was another way to be powerful. Later that evening, Jae-hoon visited a school on Earth. He had been invited to speak to students about the old days. The classroom was full of children, human and alien both, studying together. It was normal now, common. But he remembered when it would have been unthinkable. Why did humanity help the Varen? A young human girl asked. They could have just kept the technology and become more powerful. Jae-hoon smiled. Because we remembered what it felt like to be dying. We remembered what it meant to be saved, and we decided that remembering mattered more than power. A Viren child, its crystalline body still small and bright, raised a limb. My teacher says that humans changed the galaxy. Is that true? Yes, Jae-hoon said, but not the way you might think. We didn't change it by conquering or inventing or discovering. We changed it by choosing. We chose to repay kindness. We chose to sacrifice for others. We chose to believe that compassion was stronger than selfishness. And that choice, that single decision to save the Viren, created ripples that are still spreading. He looked at the mixed classroom, at children from a dozen species learning together, playing together, growing up in a galaxy that valued cooperation over conquest. The Varan taught us that species survive through compassion. We proved it was true, and now the whole galaxy is learning the same lesson. That night, Jae-hoon stood in the memorial park again, looking up at the stars. Somewhere out there on New Dawn, Varen children were looking at the same stars. On 47 different worlds, species that had once competed now cooperated. The covenant was growing, spreading, transforming the very nature of galactic civilization. And it had all started with one decision. To help those who had helped them, Dr. Ji-won, now incredibly old but still sharp, joined him at the memorial. She moved slowly, her body bent with age, but her eyes were bright. I've been calculating, she said without preamble. If we hadn't saved the Varan, if we had used those resources for military expansion and colonization, we would have gained maybe 30 more colonies and 5 more years of accelerated growth. Then the galaxy would have crushed us. The old powers would have united against us, seeing us as a threat. But we saved them instead, Jae-hoon said. And gained 47 allies, Ji-won finished. Species that trust us because we proved we could be trusted. A network of cooperation that makes us more secure than any military could. We traded 30 colonies for an entirely new galactic order. Best deal in human history. She looked at the crystalline sculpture, the 2 hands reaching across the stars. Captain Daewon made me promise something before he died, she said softly. He made me promise that humanity would never forget what the Varen gave us. That we would never forget that moment when we were dying and someone chose to save us for no reason except that it was right. We kept that promise, Jae-hoon said. We did more than keep it, Ji-won replied. We turned it into a philosophy that changed the galaxy. We proved that the most human thing, the most powerful thing we could do, was remember kindness and repay it. That's our legacy. Not our weapons or our technology or our colonies. Our legacy is showing the galaxy that there's another way to be strong.